Hello, people. Welcome to the virtual salmon rearing experience. You will be learning about how you are connected to salmon. You'll explore their history, life cycle, and their importance here in the Pacific Northwest. And of course, you'll be learning what we need to do to help them be healthy and strong in their tank experience. The oldest salmon fossil comes from 50 million years ago, long before humans walked the earth. 5 to 6 million years ago, salmon were up to 10 feet long and weighed up to 500 pounds. They had super impressive teeth too, so today some people call them saber-toothed salmon. 5 different kinds of salmon live in the Pacific Ocean and the rivers, streams, and lakes that feed into the Pacific. By contrast, the Atlantic Ocean supports only one salmon species. This map gives you an idea of where Pacific salmon live, or rather spawn. So the green areas show the land areas where salmon travel upstream to spawn, go back to their home streams. The yellow areas are limited areas, not so much anymore, and the red areas, salmon just can't get there anymore. The blue areas, the places where salmon will be out finding their food, and the land areas have major rivers shown with blue lines. Just like people, salmon have a life cycle, from eggs to alevin, fry, all the way to the spawner. You are in a human life cycle. Think about where you are at in the human life cycle. The amount of time spent at each life stage varies by species, but we'll look at COHO since it's a species that's in our area. When spawners return to the stream or lake or river, they leave their fertilized eggs in the gravel, buried loosely so predators won't see them and they can still get oxygen. When the eggs emerge into alevin, they stay in that gravel. And when the alevin become fry, they leave the gravel and start swimming freely looking for food. If they find enough, they might grow into fingerlings over the next year, then into smolts, ready to migrate to salt water. There, they reach their full size and stay for at least 2 years before returning as spawners to their freshwater stream to repeat the cycle. The trick to rearing salmon in a tank is to create a habitat that provides everything young salmon will need to survive in the wild. What do you think some of those things might be? Let's look at how we can provide 3 of the important things juvenile salmon would find in the wild. So we're comparing the wild and the tank. So things in common are clean water, cold water, and oxygen. In the wild, it just takes care of itself. Hopefully there aren't pesticides or chemicals in the area. Shade keeps the water cool. Riffles and waterfalls make oxygen. In the tank, we provide a filter to help keep the water clean. We make the water cold with something called a chiller, and we make bubbles for oxygen with an aeration system. That helps keep them able to breathe. In the wild, things that they would need are food, waste disposal, and protection, the same things in the tank, but in the wild, they'll actually eat when they're ready, once they're at their fry stage. We won't be feeding them until we release them, and that will be at their fry stage. They can start eating for themselves. In the wild, the flow of the water keeps their waste, their waste. It keeps it from staying in one area. In the tank, we have to clean that out by changing out water, maybe cleaning it with one of these kind of devices. Usually it doesn't come to that. Out in the wild for protection, they have gravel that they can hide under. You'll see the alevin there. But in the tank, it's really just us we have to protect against. So maybe a sign reminding people not to tap on the glass. That would be helpful. So here's a graph showing coho survival in the wild. Up here, this represents 9,000 eggs. This is multiple female salmon They each can have anywhere from, 2 to 3,000, I think, for COHO. Out of those eggs, only 900 make it to the fry stage. So there's a lot of things that can happen. When from that number, it's 18 smolts will end up, getting to that stage. And then out of that, one adult. This is a super important graphic to be paying attention to. It'll help you understand a little bit more what will be happening to our little eggs over time. This is a graph showing the range for food. So salmon that survive their time in freshwater could have a long journey ahead of them to find food. Each of these different colors shows the different types. So the type we're raising is Chinook, and so they go quite a ways away. They're a big fish, they travel quite a ways away. The coho we've been speaking of don't go all that far away, and they have a pretty big range. So this is just an interesting way of looking at where our salmon might be when they're out in the ocean part of their life cycle. Predators are one reason that survival can be low. Lots of larger animals depend on salmon for their meals, but predators aren't the only concern. Rain collects all kinds of chemicals from streets, parking lots, and landscapes. And if these chemicals don't just kill the salmon right away, they might make it so that they can't actually spawn. And loss of habitat is the third major reason so many salmon die early. Houses and other buildings next to the water take out plants that keep the water cold for the salmon. And stripping hillsides of trees can cause erosion in heavy rains, and that can make the water really muddy, and salmon can't see their food or predators, and they also can't breathe. So because we're rearing salmon in the safety of an aquarium, we can help them beat these odds. We're going to be keeping track of the daily water temperature so we can measure the temperature units and know when we are going to release them. We'll also be testing the water for pH to make sure that it's just at the right level that keeps the salmon healthy and happy. And we're going to keep track of that data with a chart. And so each week you'll get a chance to do that. When our fry are big and strong, they will be released into the waterways in our area. We release into the habitat over near Alton Baker Park, and that will happen in December. Habitat isn't just where salmon live. They also contribute to making it a healthy place. After spawners die, their bodies feed the water insects that young salmon will need to eat. They also feed many other animals that are part of the web of life. Not many people realize that salmon are the reason we have such lush forests in the Pacific Northwest. Their bodies feed plants along the water, but thanks to birds and other predators, they also feed trees and bushes away from the water. Salmon are at the heart of a strong and deeply rooted culture here in the Pacific Northwest. For centuries, Native American art, stories, and ceremonies have reminded people to cherish the earth and the water that gives us so much life. Salmon connect even more in the Pacific Northwest. Many people make a living being, catching fish for all of us that like to eat it. And some people catch their own fish because they like to eat it. So salmon give to us humans just as we hopefully can give back to them. So here are some things you can do to help. A big idea is to bike, walk, and take the bus whenever you can. Chemicals from cars can make salmon sick. And share what you learn with your family. Tell them about it. Teach them about it. Spend time so they can understand what you are going to understand. And maybe convince your family to visit a park or even join a work party to restore a habitat. It's so much fun sharing these experiences with each other. So let's review. Salmon have been around for a very long time. Like every living thing, salmon have a life cycle. Bigger animals and humans threaten salmon. Salmon keep on giving even after they die. Salmon are important to our culture and economy. And we can all help salmon have a healthy place to live. I'm really looking forward to sharing this virtual salmon rearing experience with you. Stay tuned for more videos and lessons soon.